Welcome to the Explainer. So, quick question for you. Did you know there are over 160 million active US passports right now, and literally millions of them are set to expire this year? It's true. And hey, even if you aren't hopping on a plane tomorrow, a valid passport is hands down one of the most powerful forms of ID you can have. But I know what you're thinking. Renewing it sounds like a total bureaucratic nightmare, right? Well, that's exactly why we're here today. We are going to completely transform what feels like a stressful maze into a super simple, straightforward process. So let's just dive right in. This is your ultimate, totally stress-free guide to renewing your US passport by mail for 2026. First things first, take a quick mental look at your calendar for the next 12 months. Do you have any international trips coming up? Maybe you're finally taking that summer vacation to Europe, or you're planning a winter escape to the Caribbean. Well, we're looking at absolute record-breaking international travel demand in 2026. And you know what comes with record demand? Yep, very real processing delays. Missing your flight just because your passport was stuck in the mail can end up costing you hundreds or even thousands of dollars in massive rebooking fees. Not to mention, it totally ruins the vibe of your vacation. Now, you might be wondering why this matters right this very second if your passport doesn't expire for a few more months. It all comes down to something called the 6-month validity rule. A ton of people don't actually realize this, but with some really strict entry requirements out there, especially over in Europe, your passport literally has to be valid for at least 6 months past your planned return date. So let's say your passport expires in August, but you're traveling in May, you could actually be denied boarding at the airport. No way around it. Couple that rule with the peak travel demand we just talked about, and timing your renewal suddenly becomes the absolute most critical part of your trip planning. Okay, real quick, here is our roadmap to get you fully prepared. We'll start with why you need to renew right now, then we'll figure out if you're eligible. After that, we'll walk through the step-by-step guide, break down mailing and processing times, jump into some expert tips and FAQs, and finally wrap up with a quick recap and disclaimer. All right, Section 1, why renew right now? The clock is ticking on processing times. I really want you to listen to this official warning directly from the U.S. Department of State. They explicitly say, mailing times may add 2 weeks onto the total time to get your passport. A lot of people just assume that the processing clock starts ticking the second they drop their envelope in the mailbox. Honestly, it doesn't. The processing time actually only begins the day the agency physically receives your application and logs it into their system. That built-in mailing buffer is exactly why acting early is so absolutely crucial. Section 2. Are you eligible? Form DS-82 versus Form DS-11. So the government has some pretty strict parameters separating these two forms. To use the super convenient mail-in Form DS-82, you have to meet a few checks. First, you must physically possess your old passport, and it has to be undamaged. Second, it must have been issued when you were 16 or older. Third, it had to be issued within the last 15 years. And finally, the name on it needs to match your current name, or you need a certified legal document proving your name change. If you miss literally even one of these criteria, like say your passport was lost or you were 15 when you got it, sorry, you have to apply in person using Form DS-11. But the great news is, if you did check all those boxes, you qualify for Form DS-82. This is the specific application used by eligible citizens to just renew by mail. And here is a really fantastic bonus for you. By using Form DS-82 and skipping that whole in-person appointment, you automatically save yourself a $35 execution fee. It's faster, it's cheaper, and you can literally do the whole thing right from your kitchen table. Moving right along to Section 3, the step-by-step guide, from preparation to the post office. Okay, let's gather our supplies. Here is your checklist for the application package. You're going to need your most recent, undamaged passport. You'll need the completed and signed Form DS-82, and you can easily just download and print that straight from travel.state.gov. You need one brand new 2x2-inch color passport photo. You'll also need a check or a money order, and make sure it's made payable specifically to the U.S. Department of State. And lastly, if you've changed your name since your last passport was issued, you absolutely must include an original or certified name change document, like a marriage certificate, for example. Now, we have to look closely at the administrative steps because I'm not kidding, the government is incredibly strict about this. Step 1, whether you fill out the form online and print it or just write it out by hand, you must use black ink and clear block letters. And whatever you do, do not use whiteout. Step 2, make sure you actually sign and date it on that final page. But step 3, man, this is where people constantly mess up. You have to attach your photo using exactly 4 vertical staples in the 4 corners, as close to the edge as possible. Do not bend the photo. If you get creative with those staples, your whole application can just get rejected. So once your form is looking perfect, how do we package it? Step 1. Place everything in a large envelope. Ideally, you want a Tyvek or a Priority Mail flat rate envelope just to give it some protection. Step 2. Do not fold the application form, and again, do not bend that photo. Now, step 3 is an absolute deal breaker. You must mail this exclusively through the United States Postal Service, USPS. I'm serious, if you try to be fancy and use FedEx, UPS, or DHL, the government will literally just return your application to you totally unprocessed. And where exactly is this highly sensitive package going? Well, for routine service, it totally depends on where you live. If you reside in California, Florida, Illinois, Minnesota, New York, or Texas, you are going to mail your envelope to the processing center down in Irving, Texas. For residents of literally all other states, or if you happen to be in Canada, you'll mail yours to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Definitely double-check this address on your form so you don't accidentally send your sensitive documents on a cross-country detour. Section 4, Mailing and Processing Times. Let's talk about how much it costs and how long it takes. All right, let's compare the costs directly so you know your options. A routine passport book renewal costs $130 flat, with a processing time of about 4 to 6 weeks. Now, if you're in a bit of a rush and need it faster, you can choose the expedited service. That cuts the processing down to just 2 to 3 weeks, but it will add a $60 fee on top. And pay attention to this 2026 update. If you want the government to send your brand new passport back to you with 1 to 2 day shipping, that return delivery fee is now exactly $23.36. Knowing these numbers really helps you make an informed choice based on exactly when your flight actually takes off. Now, remember that quote from the State Department we talked about earlier? We still have to account for the actual mailing time. So if you go with routine service, which processes in 4 to 6 weeks, you need to add roughly 2 weeks of mail delays on either end of that. That means your total door-to-door time can easily take up to 8 full weeks. So just keep the number 8 in your head if you aren't paying extra for that expedited service. But what if you have an absolute travel emergency? Like if your international trip is coming up within 14 calendar days. I hate to say it, but the mail-in option is completely off the table. You just cannot mail it in. In that scenario, you will be required to secure an urgent in-person appointment at a regional passport agency, and you'll even have to provide proof of your imminent travel. Those appointments are notoriously difficult to snag, which is, of course, exactly why we are planning ahead right now. Section 5, Expert Tips and FAQs. Let's avoid some common pitfalls. First up, let's quickly clear up the difference between the passport book and the passport card, because people get this mixed up all the time. The passport book is what you absolutely need for international air travel anywhere in the world. That's the one that costs $130. The passport card, on the other hand, is a cheaper, wallet-sized alternative that only costs $30. But, and this is a huge but, it is strictly only valid for land and sea border crossings to places like Canada, Mexico, or the Caribbean. If you are getting on an international flight, no question, you absolutely must have the book. Okay, here are some really critical pro tips to save you a massive headache. We actually heard a story recently of an applicant whose whole trip was nearly ruined because they forgot one single word on their envelope. If you are paying that $60 expedite fee, you must write the word expedite in huge block letters on the outside of your envelope so the mailroom knows to sort it properly. Also, if you're taking your photo at home, use an AI-compliant app like Photo AID to ensure you have the correct sizing and a perfect white background. Seriously, no selfies allowed. Another thing, don't panic if your mail arrives in pieces. You might actually get up to 3 separate mailings, returning your old passport, your new book, and a new card on totally different days. Oh, and finally, if you submit any photocopies for your name change or whatever, just know they will not be returned to you. Section 6. Recap and Disclaimer. Final checks before you drop it in the mail. Let's do a quick final checklist. First, definitely go verify this 6-month validity rule for your specific travel destination right now. Next, ensure you are 100% eligible for that DS-82 mail-in form we just walked through. Third, double-check your math on those fees and absolutely make sure you are using trackable USPS shipping. And just as a quick professional disclaimer here, government processing times do fluctuate all the time based on volume and external factors. So it is always a really smart move to verify the absolute latest updates directly on travel.state.gov before you send everything off. I'll leave you with this one thought. Is your passport actually ready for the 2026 travel boom? Or is a simple, easily fixed expiration date quietly standing between you and the vacation you've been dreaming about all year? Honestly, don't let a little bit of paperwork be the reason you miss your flight. Go grab your passport right now, check that expiration date, and if you need to, get this renewal process started today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, safe travels.